Well, Dyani Whitehawk is one of the artists featured at the Tweed. Welcome.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you here tonight on a cold night.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So tell me about how you got involved with this exhibit. How did that call come to you?
John Hitchcock and Ken Bloom, and at the time another curator that they had working there, contacted me and asked me if I was interested in participating in the exhibit. John Hitchcock was a previous professor of mine at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so he was familiar with my work. And I think that he knew, according to the theme that he had built, that my work fit that particular theme.
So what kind of themes do you like to play with? What's meaningful for you?
A lot of my work comes from researching traditional works or older works, but it also is a way for me to draw out a lot of the meanings that I know that are embedded in those works that a lot of people aren't familiar with. So with his exhibit being the idea of things being encoded or things being buried within, that's a lot of what I deal with, and I'm an abstract artist as well, so I combine a lot of encoded information in my works.
What I find really exciting is that there are symbols that mean something if you know more, if you have a bigger cultural experience.
Correct.
And so what is it like to bring that to a venue like the Tweed?
It's really exciting for me because that's the motivation of a lot of what I do, is I see a pretty large divide between the understanding of Native American work and the mainstream audience, and a lack of exposure to it, and therefore a lack of being able to unpack that work for what it truly means. And so for my own work, I'm usually trying to draw those conversations out. So this type of exhibit is perfect for what I'd like to do, because it's trying to build those conversations and inspire them.
And not just on a local, state level, on a national level and beyond, right?
Yes, yeah, if possible. I think, that a lot of us involved in the Native art scene are generally working towards those goals. We've been historically fairly segregated in the arts institutions and whatnot, and so a lot of us are working towards having a voice that comes from ourselves that promotes a greater understanding of where our work comes from, its significance, and its contributions to art history at large.
Because as you look at the Louvre or any of the big, art movements, you see all kinds of people drawing from those examples.
There's a long history of Western artists that have garnished a great amount of influence from Indigenous arts, and a lot of times, that can be brought up. People talk about it, and they highlight it for just a moment here and there. But a lot of times, the reality of how much influence is actually there isn't really talked about. And for me, the biggest thing is that it's not honored as much as it should be, and that their Native peers at the time don't get the same honor as the Western artist who has gleaned that information or that aesthetic from an Indigenous artist.
It's exciting to be able to learn from you and from your artwork and from the exhibit at the Tweed. Now, we do have some samples of your artwork, and if you would, take a look at what we have, and let's see if we're even close. So tell me about this piece.
This piece is titled Self-Reflection. So this is actually a very personal piece in the fact that it deals with ideas of identity issues. And so a lot of my work comes from trying to find a happy medium or a place where my influences from both my Native upbringing and then my upbringing within urban environments and within Western culture mesh. And then also being the fact that I'm Lakota and German and Welsh. So that piece has these dual sides that are very much matched, but they're complementary colors as well, so they kind of clash and fight, and it's about trying to find that balance and that place of where all those things fit together and where you accept that all of those parts make up your whole.
Yeah, I saw that piece, and I saw a shark fin as well as a surfboard.
My mom saw those too.
I know, in a shark tank. That looks scary. Don't tell me about this one.
This piece is also this one really strongly deals with the overall overarching identity issue within Native communities. And so the pages of this book, this piece is titled Torn. The pages of this book are all torn from a book called Real Indians, Identity and the Survival of Native America. So it deals with blood quantum issues. It deals with, people's experiences on reservation versus urban or off reservation, their exposure to culture, all of these things. It's a really difficult, deep subject, and the book is really hard to read. And so out of the frustration in that, I tore off all the pages, ripped them all up, but to visualize, put a visual metaphor to that, but then at the same time acknowledging that the conversation is that important. We can't get rid of it. We have to address it. And so I took pieces that were important in that conversation to me, whether they were difficult or that I agreed with, and patched them back together and created the kind of centerpiece of that in the red is an old Lakota symbol, but then added the bases of the houses, kind of morphing that into a contemporary reality of these, so really just playing with our influences from cultural teachings, and then how those relate to our reality of living today, and looking for that place of where those connections make sense.
I really appreciate you taking the time. We've only just begun, and there's so much education that I personally need and then our community can gain. So thank you for taking the time.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. I want to let you know that Encoded will be up at the Tweed through the end of March, mid-March, and for hours and directions, check out the museum's website online.